everybody out there in podcast land. This is Johnny Has the Keys. I'm Tim.
I'm David.
Hey, great to have you back, David. It's been a week.
Yep, great. It has.
How many ghosts have you seen?
I've seen quite a few. Actually, I'm not as bad as you and see the bent neck lady every day, but I do kind of look for the corners now. Every scene I look at, every time I look around, I'm seeing something in the corners.
Yeah, every time I walk by a dark cased opening, I feel like something's standing to my in my periphery.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's definitely a heightened experience.
Yeah, most certainly. I guess it's creeping me out just as much the second time around as it did the first.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. What are you noticing anything seeing it a second time than the first? Is it scarier? Is it less scary? What do you think?
I think it's a little less scary because I'm not, anticipating a jump scare.
Mm-hmm.
But I am noticing things, and I'm taking more time to notice things in the background.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that statues move, so I'm looking for that now, and I wasn't really looking for that the first time around.
Yeah. I find myself doing the same thing. I agree with you. I don't think it's as scary the second time, but I do love the mood. I'm enjoying it more. I like the mood a lot more. Basically, because I'm not trying to. I think intellectually, I'm not trying to solve the puzzles. I'm trying to see how he tells the puzzles, maybe.
That makes sense.
But I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it a lot more. It's almost like a second read, I guess, of a novel. But I'm doing the same thing. I'm seeing a lot more technique. I'm seeing a lot more stuff in the background, so to speak, and the way he frames certain things to make it important. And when's he moving the camera, when's he not, that kind of stuff. So, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, now that we know the answers to the big questions, it's easier to focus on the minutia of the story and the details of the filmmaking.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, hoping that everybody listening to us knows that we're talking about The Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah, we just kind of jumped right in there. Whatever.
Just in case, but that's okay. Hopefully they've been following along.
Well, yeah,
So.
and I mean, some weeks we like to start with things that are, interesting and fun that we've come across. But when we're doing one of these on a TV series where there's 10 episodes, it's like it's not been that long since I talked to you.
Right.
So we just kind of jump right back into it. So we're going to start off with episode 4 today. I'm going to try to guide us through this episode because David's been doing it quite a bit lately, and I thought I would take some of the brunt of that away from him. Episode 4 was entitled The Twin Thing. It is an episode
great line.
Yeah, the episode that primarily focuses on the character of Luke, who is Nellie's twin, as we know. Luke, past and present. Any initial thoughts on the episode, David?
Well, again, it was one of those that I thought had a really good teaser. It has the scene basically where Luke's talking about nobody believes me. And it pulls back and we realize he's talking to Abigail. And I thought it was really creepy. It was really cool. It set it up really well. And then we got the credit scene. So I liked the teaser a lot.
Right. And it's really short.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a very brief opening with them on the grass in sort of a picnic thing going on, sitting on the grass, and him telling her that no one believes him. Then and
we never see her face and we never see her speak. So we're not, so we're still believing it's a ghost, believing that this is an imaginary friend that he has, or a ghost that's, like Piggy in Amityville. That was kind of my key reminder in that one of it's like an imaginary friend that we don't know, is that a spirit or real or whatever.
Right.
And I really like this episode because it's Luke. I like that actor a lot. This actor is really good, and I like this character a lot. He's probably, I don't know, it's hard for me to say. We'll say at the end, but I think he's probably my favorite character in the show. And trivia-wise, I found out the actor who plays him has a very, very heavy British accent. And it's like a Cockney British, too. When I saw an interview with him, I went, what? I mean, sounded totally different than Luke. It was very interesting.
Oh, I see his name is Oliver. Please, sir, may I
Yeah,
have some
Oliver.
more?
Right. And that's basically, I mean, he has this kind of, it's a very thick, like, and he's talking like that, you know, and I'm going, really? That's Luke? Seriously?
Yeah, I would have never guessed. But then
Mm-hmm.
again, it's that way on The Walking Dead too. There's so many Brits on that show, and I have no idea. I would have not known had I not known the behind the scenes stuff that they were British.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good accent work for
Hmm.
everybody.
Yeah. So we cut from them on the lawn to the
Mm-hmm.
credits, and then we are in the present day, or at least Luke grown up,
Mm-hmm.
and it is a rehab circle with a veteran telling another ghost story. Actually, a form of a ghost story. It's a very creepy story, anyway.
Yeah, I totally got into that. I thought this was, again, he's telling a story. Story's telling the plot, and it's a horror story, but it's a different kind of horror. Totally. I really liked that.
We realize that this veteran is blind, um,
Mm-hmm.
and that he tells a story about seeing a girl burned in the war. I can't remember what war it is, and how her eyes ran like runny eggs.
Yeah, yeah.
That line stuck with me.
That line stuck with me too. I was going to ask you about that, but yeah, me too. It was and I think it was Iraq. I think the war he mentioned was like Desert Storm or Iraq or one of
Right.
those because it was more modern.
Hmm.
Um, but the first and yeah, the runny eyes like eggs got me just because of the descriptive word of it. But the one that got me before that was like one of his first lines was something like, uh, "Most people don't know what happens to eyeballs in a fire." And I thought, oh my gosh, that is a Tim Smith line if ever I've heard one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty nasty. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it's funny, I wrote a story ages ago that I don't even know where it is. It's in a drawer somewhere, called Flashback, that was about an acid flashback. And
Mm-hmm.
he talks about later on being on acid and not being able to stop seeing the little burnt girl with runny eyes. And so he takes some knitting needles and decides to blind
Mm.
himself.
Yes. I thought that was a very Stephen King horror story. It was a very, it reminded me of a King type of thing that someone would do. A character that's so, that is so scared or so frightened where they are that they actually, you know, maim themselves kind of thing.
Hmm. Well, and the thing that's truly horrific is that now that he's blind, he sees her all the time.
Yes. Yeah, that's worse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You have
that's
nothing to distract you now, so all you see is her.
yeah.
Yeah, that was sad and and I like the fact that it was sad. I like the fact that it was horrific. It was startling, you know, but it was also you felt such pity for him, so sad for him, and that's kind of the setup for the whole episode. These people are in these terrible situations that you just feel really really sorry for them having to fight their own demons, kind
Right.
of thing.
So we flash forward a bit. It's still present, or should I say, grown Luke, but we're in a different room, and we are celebrating the fact that he is now 90 days clean. He gets his
Mm-hmm.
little,
Mm-hmm.
what do you call that? That little token they give you,
Chip, it's
chip.
Chip.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, I like the way that transitions because this is like a verbal transition that kind of hooks us. It's you know like last week I commented that he was using or Flanagan was using these visual transitions to kind of hook us scene to scene. This one is more vocal because Luke says, you know, we can tell he's kind of stunned that he's lasted 90 days clean and everything, and he's trying to tell his story. And I guess this is the first time he's ever attempted to tell his story. And he kind of says it that way. He says, I've never been this way before, so I've never, and then he goes, so here goes, and then it cuts. So I really like the fact that we're okay, and we lean over, and oh, now we're somewhere else. So,
And it would be to the next scene, which is Luke in the
mm-hmm.
treehouse.
Yes.
I guess he's with his dad showing the monster from the basement drawing.
Well,
Is that
before that, he's when he's in the treehouse, he starts it's the first time we hear seven because he's putting all the army men around the monster drawing, and he's counting each one. And then he puts seven out, like surrounding the monster, and then it cuts to him telling his dad
Oh,
about the
that's
monster.
right, because that's when Nell's hiding and they're pretending like they don't know where she is.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, that's very cute.
Again, a cute little parenting moment, but still, still neat. Yeah.
And this is the first time we see the hat,
Yes.
the
Yes.
bowler hat, and they give it to him, don't they?
Yes. Well, Olivia brings it down because she talks about yard sale. We could have a yard sale with all this junk and blah blah blah, and she gives Nellie the box of buttons, and then Luke wants the hat, but Dad goes, "No, it's too big for you." No, no, Mom. Olivia says, "Honey, it's too big for you," and Dad goes, "I think he'll grow into it,"
Right,
because he uses it as that whole dad thing of, but if you're going to wear a hat, you got to be a big boy, and big boys don't run around with monsters and all that, or whatever he says. He says something like, you got to grow it, you got to man up, basically, is what Dad's trying nicely to tell him,
right. He's offering
because he doesn't
encouragement.
believe him.
Hmm
He doesn't believe him, and I think that's an echo throughout this whole definitely this episode, but even later on, it becomes, I think, such a catalyst between Luke and the families. The fact that since I was a little kid, I kept saying stuff and you never believed me. Nobody ever believed me except Nellie. And I think that's his, I don't want to say it's like his Achilles heel, but I think it is a big part of his personality. I think it's a big part of what led him to be weak and addicted and everything is the fact that people don't believe him. He's seeing stuff. He says it's there. He knows it's there, and nobody believes it. I mean, how would you feel? Because, we both talked last episode about how terrifying it would be to be at the bottom of that dumbwaiter and the flashlight goes out and the thing's crawling towards you and obviously attacks you because it rips your clothes up, and yet nobody believes you.
Um, I would, I don't, as an adult, I would question whether or not I really saw it. But I guess you have
Mm-hmm.
physical proof with the ripped sweater, but who's to say you didn't rip it yourself? And what
True.
happened? I mean, we never know what happened. Did, you know, it run away when they found him, or did he push it away? I mean, they obviously didn't find
Right.
him with it attached to him. So, I mean, that's all in the mind's eye, I guess. Literally,
Right. I don't
both.
think we ever saw, but I think what he was trying to do from a storytelling point of view was kind of set it up that these things aren't just these ephemeral, ghostly things that are, that we can push our hands through. They literally can manipulate stuff around them. They can open doors. They can rip clothes. They can push people. They can, so I think he's trying to establish that these ghosts are more permeable. I mean, they're more real than just this, phantom that, goes through the walls kind of thing.
Let's
Okay,
get it.
but so where
Look at
we
the
are
notes.
is with bowler hat. Sorry, I got just I tangented off, but but we were at bowler hat, which yes, Luke ends up with it,
Yeah.
and I have in my notes. He doesn't say he likes it. Nellie says he likes it,
Nellie says what?
which is cool. Nellie says that he likes it. So he puts, like Dad puts the hat on Luke, and Nellie says he likes it, and Dad goes, "How do you
Oh,
know?" And that's when she says it's a twin thing.
right,
So it's
right.
the first kind of thing we have of they share that
Yeah.
that kind of bond. Um, and I have in my notes here that this scene ends with a very literal foreshadowing with Olivia pointing up to all the ropes hanging at the top of the staircase and going, "That's an accident waiting to happen. I can see bodies swinging up there."
I
And I thought,
know.
oh, that's right on the nose.
Yeah, that was pretty
So,
creepy. Okay, and then we go back to grown Luke, and he
mm-hmm,
is with his friend, I want to say girlfriend, Joey, in
right.
a room which looks very much like a cell, almost like a prison cell.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I believe Paige sticks her head in and says, "Your brother called," or is it just another orderly?
It's his
Yeah,
counselor,
that's
Paige,
Paige.
yes.
Yeah.
But she basically comes in and says, "Nighty night, lights out," kind of thing. So they,
Mm-hmm.
they're like sharing the cigarette, doing their. And I agree with you. I think they portray this. I don't know if it's a rehab center or a halfway house or whatever. Anyway, they portray it as very prison-like. I think Joey even has a mention about cell blocks or something.
Well, yeah, there's
Um,
like four of them sleeping in there.
yeah, it's very sterile. It's like a dormitory kind of feel. Um, but from what I liked in this scene was he mentioned the fourth step. So he's going through the 12-step program. He's on the fourth step, which is the hardest for, I think, for almost any addict, which is this uh, fearless moral inventory. So basically for people who are going through addiction, this step means you have to look back at your entire life, figure out what you've done wrong, and really come to grips with it. Be honest with it. And to the point of going and apologizing to people that you have wronged and hurt. And so they find it really hard to do. And he talks about it's really hard to do for him. And the fact that even if he went back to Steve and apologized, Steve still wouldn't believe even the apology, which shows how splintered he is from the family.
Right.
The fact that nobody believes him about anything anymore.
Oh, I really never thought about that, but you're right. It's the same way as it was when he was a child and he was seeing ghosts. They didn't believe him then either.
Yeah, right. And I think you see that throughout this whole episode, especially with Steve. He actually pisses me off in this episode, but you see that Luke is extraordinarily guilty. He becomes a very empathetic character because he's very guilty for everything he's done as he gets cleaner. But even apologizing or trying to make amends or trying to make up for it won't work because his family doesn't believe. And I also got upset because we talked about it from the, I guess, last episode or second episode. He gets upset that because he blames himself for hurting Nellie because he wasn't at her wedding, and it wasn't his fault. And I got pissed off about that. I felt sorry for little Luke or big Luke,
Yeah.
big guy, but because he's blaming himself for that, and that was one thing he shouldn't blame himself for.
Well, he
But
could have been blaming himself for being stoned, too.
yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
Because he looks bad in
That
that
kind of
scene with Shirley.
Shirley.
I mean, his
Yeah,
eyes are
he
like
does.
really sunken in. He does look high, or
Yeah.
definitely effed up. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and he's got the sniffles and all that stuff that he always. Yeah, I agree.
So he could be kicking himself about that too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then next we have 12:03 on the clock. Luke sits up,
Mm-hmm.
and guess who's there? Nell, and she just
Mm-hmm.
says, "Go."
And what did you think that meant?
You know, I'm not 100% sure.
I agree with you. I wasn't sure what it meant either. I don't, and even after seeing it, I'm not totally comfortable with what she meant. I don't know what she meant still.
Do you think she meant go to the house?
Possibly, because it seems like every ghost encounter in the present seems to be pulling or pushing them all towards the house.
Or toward each other?
We don't find out. Or toward each other. Yeah, it could be
Yeah.
that too. But we know, later on in this episode, we see that he kind of misinterprets that. But that was a good scare, I thought. I like the fact that, he did the jump and then Nell is right there. And that was kind of scary.
I'm a little mixed up with the timeline, but would she have been dead by then?
Yes.
She would have had to have been if that's a ghost. So.
Yes. I think she died at 3:03.
At
That's why
12:03,
in the pilot, well, it's 12:03 in California. It's 3:03 in
gotcha.
Boston.
Yeah, yeah,
where
yeah.
the so I think so because Dad's clock in where did you say he's from in Florida? He's
Yeah,
in
he was
Florida,
in Florida. He was
but
in Tallahassee
yeah, and so his clock's at three
or
or three.
Jacksonville, something like that.
Um, yeah, but I think that's when she actually died. That's why the whole family wakes up. And you notice when Luke wakes up, he holds his throat, puts his hand to his neck. Uh, and I think that's one of the subtleties of this episode is what gradually happens to him physically, and I think that's cool. I think that was part. This episode to me was much less jump scary and much more this ominous, dread, creepy kind of horror. It was that I feel sorry for these characters. You're pulling me into these characters, but then there's always something lurking.
Okay.
You know.
No, it just occurred to me. I was trying to piece together the timeline and them finding out and us actually knowing as an audience that she's dead. And then I just realized that, well, she was dead for a little while before Steven knew too. Steven just doesn't find out or see, you know, the ghost until the end of the first episode, which is briefly after his encounter with Luke on the stairwell. You know what I mean? It's a little confusing, but I'm sure the timeline is, I'm sure it makes sense. I'm not going to scrutinize it.
Yeah, I want to think on that. That's a pretty good question though, actually,
Well,
because
because
it
you got
could
all
be a
the
little
stuff
bit
that
of a
happens with Joey, but there's two different things
yeah.
that happen with Joey. You have Joey in the past when she's at dinner with Steven and his wife, which we'll get to in a minute. But then you also have the
Uh-huh.
stuff where he's with Joey on the streets because she has slipped from rehab. So you've got a few different little timelines going on here. But anyway, so after
But wait,
Nell,
hold on. That's it. Yeah. No, I think it's this wake up here at 12:03. That's the day before. That's the night because Joey's gone the next day, and then he goes through that whole night, and that's when the episode ends.
so
So
Nell is dead by then. So her ghost could potentially be standing in his cell. They just don't
yes,
know.
because they haven't found out yet because Dad hasn't gone to the house yet to and then called everybody
And
to
no
tell them,
one's been
which
answering their
happens the
phone.
next
Yeah.
right, which happens the next night, and that's why Steve gets the call in the pilot. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is probably when it literally happened,
Mm-hmm.
and then the rest of it is slowly everybody finding out in their
Yeah.
own way.
And I agree with you on the neck rub. I think that that's the moment she's dead. When he starts
I
rubbing on
agree.
his neck, that's when she's dead for sure because he's feeling it.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll find out till later on, but I wonder if that's the same time as Mom. I don't know if we find that out until near the end, but it would be interesting to see.
The 1203
Uh,
thing.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
maybe. Maybe
yeah,
the house likes that time.
yeah.
I'm prone
It's a
to that
special
time.
time for
Yeah.
everyone. Yeah.
What time do you like? Oh, I like 1203.
12:03 is good for me.
Okay. So then we go after the Nell tells him to go. We are back with
Mm-hmm.
Luke as a child playing with
Mm-hmm.
Nellie, and they are playing with the I don't know what you call that thing. It's like an intercom, but it looks like a horn.
Yeah, the horn. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're playing with buttons. They are dropping buttons
Yeah.
through the horn because the tube
Uh-huh.
goes from upstairs all the way down to, I believe, the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And as a button comes down, something says, Clara.
Mm-hmm.
I
Hmm.
was like, did I hear that right? Clara. Got anything to say about
And
that?
then what I thought was two points that showed the resiliency of children. One is it's right beside the dumbwaiter too, And it seems like if I was Luke, I would not want to go anywhere near that damn thing.
Hell no.
But he's standing right beside it by himself in
Yeah.
the kitchen. But anyway, so that was one. And then the other one was Nellie comes down, the last button comes through, they hear Clara. He goes up by himself to the bedroom, which is where he just heard the ghostly voice come from. And I'm going, that says a lot about a kid that he's willing to go back up there and do that.
Well,
So
it is daylight. So,
true. So there's that, yes.
but when he
Um,
goes back up and he goes to say something into the horn, the brass horn, you see the reflection of a very scary face.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
who, if it's not Clara, it's probably who was calling for Clara on the horn,
Right. And he
and
goes
he hauls
jumping
ass.
off the bed. Yes.
He's out. Choo, see ya.
Well, and then I like it because it does the first his kind of visual transitions that he likes to use. It's the first one in this episode because little Luke, young Luke, jumps down to the bottom of the stairs, and when he lands, it's big Luke landing off the bunk bed.
Yeah, but right before that, did you notice there was a ghost in the room to the right again?
No, I did
Yeah.
not wear.
Yeah, when he's running down the steps, there's one standing over in the room off the side of the stairwell again.
Oh, I missed that one.
Yeah,
Good catch.
yeah.
I did. I missed that one.
But like you said, he jumps to the bottom of the steps, and then we're in a scene where grown Luke finds a note.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I've got a slash therapy here, and then Joey's gone, and Luke leaves angry.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe I didn't
He's
write that
back
down.
in the. Well, he's got he gets the note. We don't know what it says,
Not
but
yet.
then he has to go to his therapy session. And Paige, I mean, I know that a lot of these counselors and everything else have to be really tough and really strong because addicts will lie to them. Addicts will, but she just seems totally insensitive about it. So much so that Luke gets up and leaves
Yeah,
and just says, I'm getting some air, but really he has an agenda. He's going to go, he's doing the Luke thing. I'm going to protect my friend kind of thing. And he goes to try to save her, I guess, try to find her.
right. There's a series of cuts where he's back in his room. I have parentheses cell. And then later, Paige enters and he's gone, and she finds the note, and the note says, "Don't follow me,"
Mm-hmm.
presumably
Mm-hmm.
written by Joey.
Right.
Yeah.
And he even tries to, while he's looking for her, he tries to call Nell because he's still got her in the back of his mind and he's thinking about her and everything. So he tries to call her, but he leaves a voicemail
Well,
because
she's
she's
dead.
not answering her phone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well, but he
exactly.
doesn't know that part.
I know, but we do because we've established the timeline.
Thank you for calling. I'm dead. Just leave a message.
I will get back with you in the afterlife.
In the afterlife.
Yeah.
See you soon.
Hmm.
But I have a note here that says in all these cuts, because it's him on the streets, we're seeing a lot more of probably the life he left to go into rehab kind of thing, and how kind of paranoia you get out there on the streets or whatever. But he sees across the playground in the daylight, he sees a really tall figure with a bowler hat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you don't know who that is, but it's not good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I refer to that area as Skid Row, because
Okay, good.
since we did a
Seymour
show
loves
called
it.
Little Shop of Horrors twice, it just looks like
Yep.
Skid Row to me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's portrayed that way. It's basically that cliche. And I don't want to say cliche because I think it's, it's real. It happens in lots of cities everywhere. But it's a very rundown side of town. There's lots of homeless around. There's lots of
Fires
nefarious
and trash cans.
activities.
Yeah,
Yeah, fires and
dealers,
trash
drug
cans, shopping
dealers.
carts.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Um,
I was gonna say I wrote down that he's on the payphone. A message for Nell, and I've gotten quotes. Had a moment. He must have said, "I had a
oh
moment."
yeah, yeah, yeah. He says that line about I had one of those moments,
Right, right.
or I had another moment, or whatever. And evidently, it's like the title. It's a twin thing,
Right.
but I think he's referring to the fact of either a memory came back, or he's referring to he had a moment feeling something for her,
Hmm.
like she feels for him. I think that's the moment. The moments they're talking about is those when I know you're cold because I'm cold. I know you're happy because I'm happy.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
And he grabs his neck
Um,
again there too. Or rubs
yes.
his neck. Yeah.
Yeah. Rubs
So.
his neck. He's still kind of chilling. We're getting the first signs that he's cold,
Hmm.
even though it's during the day and he's got a jacket on and everything.
Hmm.
Um, and then he does one of his, Flanagan does another one of his great cuts because he gets startled by a barking dog and suddenly it cuts to little Luke and we hear a barking dog and he's in bed.
Exactly. And remember, they were talking about in
Yeah,
an
yeah.
episode earlier that the kids hear the dogs barking, and that guy says there are no dogs.
Right,
Yeah,
right. The caretaker guy says,
Mr.
"There's
Dudley.
no dogs here." Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And the transition is to Luke, young again and in bed, and he hears a faint tapping.
Mm-hmm. A little thumping.
Yeah, coming down the hallway. He opens the door and he looks to the left and he sees a very tall ghost. So what does he do? He closes the door very quietly and he gets under the bed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and three or four things that I love. I love. Did you like this ghost design? I thought that was a creepy character because I mean he's tall. He's in a long coat that goes almost to his ankles, very thin, almost that kind of Tim Burton-y skeletal kind of thing. Uh, and he's got a cane, but he also floats off the ground, which I thought was creepy.
Hmm. It's very reminiscent of something, and I meant to research it and I forgot to, so I'm kind of trying to do it right now. But
Okay.
I'll get to that later. Um,
No, you can do that because the other thing that got me, keep looking while I'm
okay,
jabbering,
sure.
but the obviously this spirit or this ghost, this creature, he doesn't know what it is, but Luke can actually see it, and he's obviously searching for something in the hallway. He's going down the hallway, he turns, he comes back, he goes into a door, one of the other bedrooms, probably Theo's, I guess, or one of the girls. And while he's in that bedroom, Luke closes the door and hides in the bed, and you get the impression that he knows he's going to come looking. Doesn't know what for, doesn't know why he's looking. He just knows he's looking. And I also have in my notes that this is one of my favorite scenes in this episode, and I like it because it's with that moving camera work. The camera starts on Luke and basically goes from Luke to the door, pans back and we see Luke again, pans back as Luke goes to the door. I mean, it follows him kind of thing, but it starts with this repetitive shot that he keeps using throughout this whole series of somebody lying on their side in bed. And they're framed in a way that we don't know what's behind. We're afraid something's going to reach out behind them, something's going to be behind them, somebody's going to pull the sheets off of, something. But he keeps using this imaging of you may be nestled in your bed, but you're not safe kind of thing. He hides under the bed, and we get that great suspense thing that we see in, I know oh, wait, I'm going to save it. I'm going to write it down right now and use it as a key later.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I had it for a key, and I found out what it was I was looking for. I'll mention it later.
Oh, okay, so it's a key.
Yeah, kinda. It's not really a key to a movie, but yeah,
Okay.
it's a key to like an
Well, it can
icon.
be. Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be iconic for me. I
Hmm.
agree with it. Did you like the whole end of this scene where we think he's going to get away and suddenly he exhales and the thing stops and then
Oh,
turns and comes back?
yeah. I love
That
when you see the
was great.
shadow of him picking up the hat.
Yes. And we realize that's what he's come to get. Luke has his hat.
Right.
So evidently this is the character who that hat, the ghost is whoever owned that hat before in the
Correct.
house. And but we also get even more information because he even reaches under the bed, literally pulls the bedspread up and puts his head, Luke's in and sees Luke. And
Yeah.
that's when Luke screams, and then we cut to taxi break. So we get another audio
And
cut,
what about
like
that
it's all.
high-pitched scream? I mean, I don't even
Oh
think
my gosh.
it's like 2 episodes in a row we've seen him screaming or heard
Hmm.
him screaming. Yeah.
And that really high pitch too, which is,
Hmm.
which puts you on edge. It's
Hmm.
creepy.
Okay, I've got Luke sighs, man turns, hand, face, scream,
Uh-huh.
which is pretty, pretty terrifying. After that, yeah, like you said, Luke's back on the
Well,
street.
and I'll throw something at you. It got me because I was wondering, okay, so the dumbwaiter scene, basically, mom and dad come down, they rescue him, pull him out. Let's go over here. Everything's okay. The bent neck lady, we never know what happens. I mean, he, other than when Nellie starts screaming, people come to help her. So I guess bent neck lady goes away. So are we assuming that's what happened here? I mean, why? What prevented the guy from reaching under there and snatching Luke up or whatever? We assume mommy and daddy came running or Nell or
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, it's just I don't know. It's poetic license. It's a great cut when somebody screams. Scream, cut, next scene. you know,
Yeah, next
you
scene. Good transition. Did
it's
well
like,
there.
what happened? Well, we don't have to worry about it because we cut.
Right. Right, right, right.
Yeah, yeah. You have to figure those things out in other mediums, but not always in television, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, my guess is that yeah, mom and dad came running and the ghost vanished. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but I mean, mom and dad see ghosts too, so who knows?
Yeah, true.
Maybe
True.
he
Well, we
said,
don't know that Hugh has seen any yet.
you know what he actually
We
he
assume
said?
Olivia might have.
The
What?
ghost actually said, "Do you have the time?" And Luke said, 12:03.
1203.
Anyway, so like you said, we cut to brakes or something on the street. Luke sees,
Yeah, taxi cab. Yeah.
yeah, Luke sees Joey speaking with what is apparently a drug dealer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he talks with her, tries to call Paige, who will not let them come back because they broke the
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah. My notes say finds Joey, but that bitch Paige won't let him come back.
Right. You know the rules. What was that old
Yeah, you
movie
brought
with?
this on yourself, she even says. I hate that for them. And I know they have to keep those rules. And again, they have to be strong and everything else. It just sucks because you're seeing somebody who's really trying and can't get a break.
Right. Luke, I've got a note that Luke rubs his neck again in this scene, and he sees the tall
Mm-hmm.
man again at the very end of it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And
And
he also starts getting colder. He even mentions he's cold.
right. Then we have sort of a transition. It's not back to a child. It's just him and Joey walking, and he tells Joey that
Mm-hmm.
she reminds him of Nell.
Yeah.
Why do you think
Yeah, I
he
like
says
that.
that?
I think it's true. I think it for two or three things. I think from a storyteller, like writer Mike Flanagan point of view, they want to show that this isn't a physical relationship. She's not really literally his girlfriend. She is somebody he cares a great deal about. I think that's what he's trying to say. And he has to literally say that, say, you're my sister, not my haughty addict girlfriend or whatever. But also I think he genuinely feels that. He feels a connection to her because he even says it. He says, because you believe me.
Yeah.
And no one else in my entire family has ever believed me except Nell. And I think she fills that void that Nell had.
Because Nell always believed
was
him.
too. Yeah, and she was always there. It was a twin thing, blah blah blah. But now she's married on her own life, doing her thing, and he's like alone, and reaching out for somebody that will be, that will care about him and believe him.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's the answer right there. She reminds him of Nell because she believes in him, and no one else does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think, again, as you've said, what makes this series work, I mean, if you had watched this scene, you would not think this series was a horror story. Because this scene is just great character work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what, like you said, I was kind of hooked at the, you said you were hooked at the beginning because you knew it would be scary, but then what really hooked you were the characters. And I think that's been said repeatedly about this series is what Flanagan has done is created this realistic family, these realistic characters. They're well portrayed, and they, it's just compelling to watch. We start getting really invested in these characters. Yeah, because I mean, this whole scene, them walking, going up to Steve's house, and then him finding out Steve's not there. But then this whole flashback of months ago, or I guess 2 months ago or whatever, when he actually brought Joey to the house and Steve and his wife, and they all had dinner.
It was when he had gotten his 30-day chip.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's right.
They were like celebrating.
And again, a great dinner scene, cool character with all of them. Joey really has her stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
Except, and we're kind of endeared to her. We like her, and obviously she likes Luke, and they have a relationship. They've helped each other, and that works. The wife hardly says. As a matter of fact, I don't even think she says anything this entire scene. She just kind of looks around reproachfully. But Steve is such a dick in this scene.
Why do you think he is such a dick? Because he really pisses me off in this scene.
I know. This scene and the next one especially. Well, it's because I don't know if we're really trying to hammer home the fact that he is in denial. He denies everything. He doesn't believe anybody about anything. Or if he's just felt so burned. I mean, I think in an earlier scene in this episode, I think in that fourth step scene with Joey, I think Luke says something about, I've taken so much money from Steve or whatever. But still, I mean, we all know about siblings and the trouble you can have with siblings and everything else, but he just acts like a total dick in these two scenes. And he insults Joey, and he just acts like a jerk, even though in the kitchen scene we see Joey and the wife outside, and obviously they're laughing and getting along, and everything seems to be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something.
I mean, what do you think? Why do you think he's such a dick?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's because we like Luke so much and we want to see Luke succeed. Why doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you? And I love the capper line. Luke has, I can't remember it. I didn't write it down, but, Luke basically saying, I came here to celebrate my 30 days, and thanks for making me feel like shit again, Steve, like you always do.
Yeah.
And he kind of, walks out, and I'm just going, yeah, thanks, Steve.
Oh, you know what? I've got another thought. That's pretty valid, actually.
Yeah.
He's not happy to see Luke happy with this girl because he's not happy with his wife. Because he and Leah broke up 2 months later.
Yeah, so maybe they're having the fights now. Obviously they are.
Yeah.
And maybe he's feeling like, don't trust any woman because they'll hurt you.
It could be.
So, yeah, but if that was, yeah, and I think that's a cool layer, but if that was true, I would have liked to have seen dialogue that kind of represented that a little bit more. So
Yeah.
it didn't seem so much like he was literally attacking Steve. It was, I mean, Luke, it was that he was taking out his own BS on Luke.
Yeah, I agree. There should have been some dialogue to that effect, but as an actor, I can see him using that
Oh, yeah.
in a
Oh,
heartbeat.
yes, easily.
Yeah, because I mean they're broken. I mean literally before that scene, it's Lee telling Luke she's not giving him any money, and he asked for Steve's address.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I mean you know he's gone because she tells him, and
Well,
it's
she
only
even
been
says,
two
I think,
months.
something like, no, Steve's not here, and I don't think he'll ever be here again, or he's not coming back, or whatever.
Right.
She says something like that. So,
Hmm.
um, and you can see it, again, good acting. You can see it in Luke's face. He wants to say, what? And she says, I don't want to talk about it. And you know he wants to go, well, what's wrong? How can, and instead he goes like, yeah, but I got my own shit to deal with.
You know what I was just thinking is,
What?
you know how they have referred to the money from the book that he dispersed amongst the family as blood money? Yeah.
Yeah.
What if that's part of the curse? Is that, all this shit starts happening because they took that money. And I mean,
Oh, no.
Shirley didn't take it, but her husband did. And you find that out later. So she took it indirectly, not knowing, of course, but she's a victim as a result. I mean, I don't think I'm not buying into that. I just think it's an interesting theory, though.
That is interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, blood money.
Yeah.
Don't take it.
That reminds me of
It's
something. Okay,
cursed.
I'll bring it up later. But that reminds me of something. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
cursed.
yeah, it's cursed. Okay, so I've got Steve and Luke do dishes. Steve's a jerk. Um,
Hmm.
Good people will burn you is one of Steve's lines, and the first thing that popped into my head was his dad. I think he
Hmm.
feels maybe burned by the father.
Well,
Um,
I got that. Yeah, I got two things off that. I got that one. Good people burn you, like Dad did, and subliminally, and like you burn me, even though you say you're a good guy, Luke. Blah blah
right,
blah.
right.
But I also got, okay, that's kind of alliteration back to the story, the soldier story of people don't know what it's like when people burn, kind of thing. I mean, that may be a stretch, but that I kind of got that out of it too. That it kind of ties back in a little bit to burning,
Hmm.
kind of thing. But now to your point, maybe he's referring to his wife.
Oh
Maybe
yeah,
he's referring to Lee in that scene.
Steve is just not
So
having a
that
good
has a
day.
yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't like
And my
anybody.
damn brother,
Yeah, he's
my
just
damn brother shows up and he's happy. I
yeah.
hate it when my brother's happy.
Fuck him. Fuck
Yeah.
his girlfriend. Fuck his wife. Fuck my life. I don't know. He's got something going on, and it's obvious. It's quite obvious.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So Luke kicks the kitchen door, and we transition to him kicking in Steve's apartment door.
Yes. Yeah. Another one of those visuals.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
Hmm. And he, rummages through the drawers. He steals some stuff, and then we come to that scene from the first episode where they meet on the staircase. Except this time it's from Luke's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that
Mm-hmm.
shit. I think I said before,
Yeah.
I eat that stuff like candy. That's just awesome storytelling, where you can just jump from character to character in the same scene.
And you get so much of the counter POV, which I really like. I like the
Hmm.
fact that we had this in our mind. We had already pegged Luke. We knew Luke just because we saw it from Steve's angle.
Hmm.
And ripping off your, you even said it. He's ripping off you're ripping off my stuff. How'd you let him steal my stuff?
Right,
um,
right.
but now we see it from a totally different angle and see that Luke isn't even doing this for himself. He's doing this for Joey, and it's all this selfless kind of act, not selfish. And when he says the line, "This isn't what you think, Steve," it's totally different interpretation
Yeah,
when we see it from his point of view.
because we know what has happened from the other side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and his inflection is this: "I know you're not going to believe me, but this really isn't what you think." I mean, you can see this defeat. You can hear this defeatist kind of mental attitude in the way he inflects that line. You know, it's like, why am I even going to try to explain it to you? Because you won't believe me, just like you always do.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was really good. I like that seeing it from a different perspective. And I think, is this the first time in the series we get something from a different perspective? Well, no, because if we count, like in last week's episode with Theo, there was that one scene that suddenly cut to her point of view when Nellie's body arrived. And when she had the whole thing about, "I can't do this," and she left Shirley and
Yeah.
drove away. So I think that may have been the first one. But he does that really well in this, giving us these moments, and then we see him from a different person's point of view and totally have different interprets.
Right.
So cool work. Cool writing again.
Yeah, it's very layered, especially when you're doing it in different episodes. They did it on Castle
Mm-hmm.
Rock too. They did it on Castle Rock really well too.
They did.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
yeah. Now we are back with Joey, and he has $200. She is thrilled. They're walking. Luke is very cold now.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote that
Mm-hmm.
he is hurting. Um, and I also wrote that we know Nell is dead, but he doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, like shivering almost.
Hmm. Joey says she has to pee. She kisses him,
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
and while she's kissing him, obviously picks his pocket and takes the money and heads to
Mm-hmm.
whatever the quote bathroom is, some alley.
Yeah, the
Um,
addict's bathroom. That's what she called a junkie bathroom. That's what she calls it, I think.
yeah, and he soon realizes the money's gone. He screams Joey, and he sees the tall man again with the hat.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And I liked his acting here because, when the kiss happened, he was like really hesitant, almost literally flinched, pulled back when she started to kiss him. And then after she kissed him, it was like his whole face was like, you could tell it wasn't "Oh, thank God you finally did that. I've been in love with you all these months." It was like, why the hell did you do that?
It was confusion.
And it
Yeah.
was almost like a brother-sister kind of thing, You got that kind of, well, that was weird, wasn't it?
Hmm.
And, okay, and I got to ask, did you know what was happening when she did that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
I think all the subtlety of the way it was shot and everything else, I think he telegraphed that really well to us as an audience. It was like, dude, she's ripping you off. She's ripping you off.
Yeah.
Which I think just endears us to Luke even more. Poor Luke keeps getting screwed as a
Yeah.
little kid and as an adult.
Well, and if he's confused by the kiss, that means she's misinterpreting him as well because she thinks he wants the kiss.
Oh, yeah, it'll distract him enough kind of
Right.
thing.
And that
Yeah, I agree
means
with
that
that.
she doesn't know him or doesn't care about him anyway. And
Yeah,
that's why
yeah,
she's
unfortunately.
up to something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
bitch. um,
Well, and we'll get to that in a minute. I want to ask you a question about that.
I guess I wrote briefly there was a scene at Skid Row with the tall man, but I thought that was the end of this scene because the next thing I have is Luke again at his 90-day chip speech.
Yeah, we go back to the scene like from the beginning where he's starting to tell his story, except this time we hear a little bit more. We hear the story.
Right. And as he's telling the story, we're seeing flashbacks of him, or not flashbacks, but I guess I don't know if they're flashbacks or flash forwards.
They flash forward because it's him getting ripped off.
Right. He's getting like beat up by some
Yeah,
thugs
yeah,
on the street. And later
yep,
we see him walking. He doesn't even have shoes. They took his shoes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking, okay, first of all, you five assholes or whatever. Well, why would you beat up on a guy who obviously looks like another junkie? I mean, he's shivering. He doesn't look well. Da da da. Why would you beat? And then I thought, oh yeah, you're taking his coat and his shoes. Okay, because he doesn't have any money.
Hmm.
But
I don't have much about his speech, but I did note that he mentions his mother's suicide.
yeah, I think because I watched that twice in this rewatch. That scene just to one was just looking at it, watching him get beat up and all that, but the other was just to listen to what he told. And he basically told the story of he didn't really realize his mother was had committed suicide and died when it happened, and when he had to go live with his aunt and everything, because he kept wanting his mom to come back. And he tells that great story of I used to think that any headlights that came up to the house at night were her driving up. It was mom coming back, or coming to get me. And you feel even more sad about him. I mean, you just want to say, dude, I'm so sorry. And I wrote down, he has a great line where he says, but none of the headlights ever were. And he says, the tail lights were the worst, red eyes in the dark, just taking hope with them.
Wow.
And I thought that was so poetically written.
Yeah.
Uh, and says so much to his character, the fact that he keeps getting his hopes up and they keep going away. And that's probably contributed to that whole addict life too.
Yeah.
Of, he every time he takes a step forward, he takes three back kind of thing. I find my friend Joey and she dicks me and steals my money and goes away. Or whatever, mom's never coming back kind of thing.
Yeah.
And again, I think subliminally it reinforces this whole thing that we see. And I think that might be cool on the third watch to see is how many times do these kids reference their mother?
Mm-hmm.
Because, Steve says it's a disease that mom had. Shirley mentions the fact that dad never told us about mom. I think there's all these references to mom. And to Luke's, it was, you're never coming to save me. You're never coming to get me.
The headlights is a sort of a foreshadow too, because there's about to be headlights
Yes.
too.
I had not thought of that, but that is very true.
Yeah.
That makes total sense now. Yeah. But then to your point, yeah, he sees his bowler guy again.
Yeah, he sees the guy again. I mean, he sees the guys multiple times, but he sees the tall man again, and then you have the applause of the end of his speech, and then he's back on the phone, speaking with Paige, telling her he didn't fuck up and that he is very cold. He's begging her basically, and she is with someone, but we don't see who it is.
Right.
I've got counting. Oh, it's him counting.
Yeah, he counts to 7. He's doing the 7 count.
Yeah.
He's walking and pacing and doing the 7 count.
Which is
because, but we don't know why yet. Really.
Right.
We know that he's counting to 7, but we don't know why.
Right.
And I also have another line from his speech, which is, and I've actually mentioned this to counselors and other people, but he says, any addict alone, and everybody repeats, is in bad company. Which is obviously some kind of line that they use in therapy, in the 12 step.
I'm sure.
But yeah, and I loved the scene, the way they shot and did that scene with him literally begging Paige, saying, I'll sleep on the floor. I don't care. I just need a place. I'm freezing. And he even mentions he's hurting now. His arms are stiff, I think, in that scene or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And she's obviously looking at somebody we don't know who until the end of that scene, and we realize it's Steve.
Yeah.
And she says, we'll come and get you. But she doesn't tell him about Steve. She just says, we'll come and get you.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Then we cut to little Luke in bed, and Nell is
Mm-hmm.
crying about the Betnet lady. So Luke gets in bed with her and tells her that she needs 7 buttons and that they represent the family members. I wrote very OCD. It has to be 7. It keeps you safe.
Yes. It keeps you safe. I love that line. It keeps you safe.
Hmm. And some forms of OCD is counting, people counting. That's why that one
Oh
came to
yeah,
me.
yeah.
So,
I think that's why Sheldon knocks 3 times, kind of thing. But yeah, I think that was a great scene too. I liked it, and obviously it's another night. It's not the night from the premiere when she saw Bent Neck Lady and Steve came in and Dad came in and all that. So obviously this is another time she's seeing Bent Neck Lady. So God knows how many times she saw her as a little girl.
hmm. Then we have Luke um, basically pacing on the street and counting 7.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Mm-hmm.
tall man is behind him and following him.
Yes.
And when he stops, the
Good
tall man
creepy scene.
stops. Yeah, it's pretty creepy. He continues counting 7. And at one point, he finally stops because he knows the tall man is right behind him. And he turns, and it's not the tall man, it's his mother.
Mm-hmm.
And her eyes are like headlights, bright lights,
Yes.
which is, again, foreshadowing from the previous speech.
Yep.
Um, and then it turns out that they're not her eyes at all. They're the lights from the car, and it's Paige and Steven pulling up to the curb to get him.
Yes.
Uh,
Really good transition. I love the way that whole scene played out. I like the terror part of him walking and counting to 7, and we see the guy in the background. And when he moves, the bowler man moves or the tall man moves. But then that third time, he stops, and then the bowler man starts moving towards him and gets right behind him. And you just go, oh, no, 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 no. It was good. I liked that. But then, yeah, turning around, and it's mom. And she says something, right? She says, like, baby or honey or come home or something. Anyway, she says something to him before her eyes go all red or white, like white. Come home or something like
I
that.
didn't write
And
it
then we
down,
realize that, yeah.
so I'm not really sure.
But then we realize that it's Steve and Paige. And just, again, the emotion of that scene is so good. The look on Luke's face when he sees it's Steve, and he's almost crying, and they hug each other.
Yeah,
And
he mumbles that
Steve
he
tells him.
couldn't help it. He's so cold. He's hurt. He's
Yeah, yeah.
numb. Um, and
Well,
then
and the line, again, it's that sometimes we read too much into it, I guess, because you and I read too much into it sometimes, just because we like to do that. But I also think it was intentional. But he's hugging Steve, and he says, I'm sorry I couldn't help her. And I think Luke is talking about Joey, or is he? And Steve is interpreting that as
now,
Nell. Yeah.
yeah, I could see that.
Because he hasn't told him yet.
Right. However, I think that you're talking about Steve being in denial, but it could potentially be Luke being in denial because I would think Luke probably knows because it's a twin thing.
Yeah, I agree. But, well, then again, I think he's been so focused on Joey that he didn't see all the signs and see it all together until Steve tells him. It's
Right.
kind of the way I took it.
Which is
And then once Steve tells him, he realizes all the stiffness, all the neck hurt, all the cold was him feeling Nellie,
hmm.
which is just creepy and sad all at the same time.
Hmm. And well, Steve tells him the very next scene or the very next shot. Really, he says, "Come with me, Nell's dead." And
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Luke says, "How?" Steve says, "Suicide." Luke rubs his neck and says, "No, it wasn't."
Yeah.
And then that's the
Yeah.
end. And you're like,
I
wow.
loved it. Again, his hooks at the end of each episode are so good, but this one was probably one of my favorites. And he also said I have a note. He said Stevie. He didn't say Steve. He said Stevie, like very familial.
Like
very,
he's a little
very,
kid
you're
again. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I keep
yeah.
calling him Steve, and I think his name is Steven, but
Yeah,
It's
but most people call him Steve.
okay because that's all I've been writing down
Yeah,
because it's shorter. But yeah,
yeah.
so
And that's how he ended the episode, which was really good. I think it's a great ending to that.
yeah.
So, what would you rank this episode? What do you think it was overall? You liked it? It was good? Was it?
I like all of them, but we were talking last week about how you thought last week's was probably the weakest in the series, the third episode,
Uh huh. Uh huh.
and I'm leaning more toward this one, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I like last week's episode better, but it could be because I just like Theo,
Could be. Yeah.
and I really like that dumbwaiter scene too. I
Yeah, you
liked it
would.
better than the ghost in the room with the hat.
Yes. Well, I think this one we get the probably get the least about the house. This is much more of Steve's story than it is about the house, other than
Luke, you mean?
Bowler guy and one hint at the spiral staircase. We don't get anything about the house in this.
No, it's primarily Luke on the street.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that as far as moving that story forward, it doesn't really do that very well. Um, cool, good point.
Yeah, I kept
Um,
expecting Ken Howard to come up with a basketball and start dribbling. That's an old reference for you
um,
folks out there. Look it up.
there you go. Well, Kate, which is a great transition to keys. So, what keys did you get from this one?
um, I didn't get a lot of keys, and I have a feeling now that may be why it's my least favorite episode because it wasn't as
Ah,
filled with horror references or ghostly references. One of the
right.
things I wanted to say that I looked up a moment ago was I kept saying, where have I seen that man in the trench coat and the hat and the cane silhouette? I said that is a
Uh-huh.
very prominent icon or whatever. And I realized, well, there is a painting. I can't remember who did it of a man with a bowler hat and an apple in front of his face. You know,
Yeah,
but what I'm
yeah. It was
actually
used actually. It's what the Beatles used for their album. I mean, for their studio.
the green apple.
It's where Green Apple came from.
Yeah. However, the one I'm thinking of is on the back of Pink Floyd's "Wish You Were Here" album, and it's of a man in a bowler hat holding an album, and he has no face or hands. He's like invisible. It's just
Oh,
the suit and the hat and the gloves.
so true.
And I was like, that's where I'm remembering this from. Is he a Pink Floyd fan or what? I was thinking it was either Pink Floyd or Fleetwood Mac. I couldn't remember, and then I finally just Googled it while we were talking, and it's Pink Floyd.
Uh-huh.
So
That's a good one.
yeah, and
That's
it's
really
not the
good. To
front;
me,
it's the back of the album, not the front of the album.
to me, he also reminded a key I had was he reminded me a lot of Slender Man. This whole the whole guy that's from Creepypasta. That's the really tall, thin, almost like Jack Skellington thin. Um, because I think there have been images of him in a tie and a coat and a hat, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
So I kind of got that one from it
Hmm.
a little bit, but I hadn't thought of the Pink Floyd one. That's a good one.
Hmm.
Um, Another key I had from early on was the whole feel of this, the coloring, the the design of this whole therapy room and the barracks, or sorry, the the dorm room or whatever, reminded me of Cuckoo's Nest. I just got a lot of Cuckoo's Nest of sitting around and confessing. You know, I expected to hear somebody say, "Play the game, play the game." you
I
know,
want my cigarettes. My cigarettes.
I want.
Yeah. I don't want his. I want
uh,
mine.
I want my cigarettes. But yeah, that was the key I wrote down. Um, Let me see.
I've got one that is along the same lines you were saying as far as the setting.
Uh-huh.
The fact that, and I was making jokes about the White Shadow, that television show earlier, because it's Skid Row, you know. Um, all the scenes where they're like walking around with trash cans on fire and derelicts standing around and dealers and hobos or whatever reminds me a lot of Clive Barker's stories,
Mm.
Hellraiser and Candyman in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Because Candyman was set in Cabrini Green, which is a real bad neighborhood. And then there's a
In
scene,
Chicago. Yeah.
yes, and there's a scene at the end of Hellraiser where there's a derelict that, turns into some kind of weird dragon or something. But anyway, they're all standing around a bonfire in a junky part of the city. I don't know. All of that just, for some reason, it gave me like a Barker-esque flair. Um,
Yeah, I could see that whole urban nightmare, urban madness kind of feel. Yeah,
right.
I can see that.
Yeah. And that's kind of a
Um,
setting thing, too. But we're reaching. You realize
uh,
that.
well, yeah, it's just what impressions we're getting now.
Yeah.
And it's hard for us because, normally in this podcast we're picking things that not only have been influenced by things, but also have influenced stuff since. It's kind of hard to do that with this show since it's so current.
Correct.
So we don't know who's going to steal from all of his ideas. No, be inspired by, or whatever the ideas from this series and take them somewhere else.
Right.
Um, but so yeah, we are kind of reaching and play. Well, like for me, one of mine is when anytime that young Luke wears the bowler hat, he reminds me of that kid in Peter Pan, even though his hat is a top hat.
Oh,
But
yeah.
he reminds me of the little kid in Peter Pan with the
Jonathan. Isn't his name
glasses and
Jonathan? Yeah, I know who you're talking
yeah, I
about.
think so, or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's who he reminds me of. So that's one of the keys I wrote down.
Yeah.
Um, what was the other one? Oh, you gave me one while we were talking.
Oh, yeah.
Um, uh, oh, yeah. I'm under the bed. I'm safe. I'm great. And then suddenly, no, I'm not. I get jerked from under the bed, reminding me of Taken, the Liam Neeson movie, with his daughter, and she's on the phone to him and everything, and you think the guy has gone away, but suddenly he comes back and grabs her from under the bed,
Oh,
sort of thing. It reminded me of that. You think you're safe, but then you exhale once, and the bastard comes back.
yeah. I have seen
Or
I have
whatever.
seen that movie, but it has been a long time. I didn't remember that at all.
Yeah, that one. Well, and there have been others too. This whole hide under the bed, but you're not really safe.
Yeah.
Uh, the reverse of that is the one from Poltergeist, which always got
That
everybody
just
with the
popped into
clown.
my head when you said that. That's funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you look under the bed, it's not there. You sit up, and suddenly it
It's
grabs you.
behind you.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And you gave me another. Okay, you do one, then I'll do another one.
well, this is not really a key, but I had to bring it up because it just cracked me up. Because obviously Flanagan is a Stephen King fan. He's
Oh yeah.
directed at least two, maybe three King properties, or is attached to maybe three. Um, so he knows Stephen King and he knows about Stephen King. And I loved that when they were sitting around eating dinner, Joey asked Stephen where he gets his ideas.
Mm,
That just
mm-hmm.
cracked me up because that is like
Yeah,
Stephen King's most hated question, and he has been bitching about that question for decades.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's a good one.
yeah,
Mine you gave me, which was, the curse and the blood money and everything else was Pirates of the Caribbean.
yeah.
'Cause that's the whole curse of the original
It's
one
the
was they took
curse
the
of the
gold.
Black Pearl.
The Black Pearl. Cool. But that's really all the ones I mean, I didn't get that many from this just because I
Mhm.
think he was doing some really cool original kind of stuff in this, and he was more focused on the family dynamic and the story rather than horror tropes
Yeah,
and telling a scary story.
yeah. And I mean, from a writer's perspective, he had to tell each of their connection. And in these episodes, he's telling their connections somewhat to now. And with Luke, he
Mm-hmm.
had to go deeper because of the twin thing. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why it's a little more personal, a little more. in the present and a little more less or a little less horror oriented and more brother sister oriented.
Yeah. And I think if we go along with the belief that, each of these family members in descending order is stages of grief, then that means Luke is a depression. And in order to be, to feel that depression, you got to kind of see it from his eyes.
Yeah.
You got to kind of be in that frame of mind to understand the depression angle of it. And again, going back to what we talked about earlier, the whole nobody believes me, no matter what I do. So it's that defeatist, depressive kind of feel.
Right.
So yeah, but again, I'm not with you. I still kind of hold to my Theo's was the weakest episode, but again, I think it's for our different reasons. I like Luke a lot. He's a very sympathetic character to me.
Yeah.
And so naturally this episode would elevate a little bit more than Theo's, but I do think the arc of the season is going along really well, and he's telling this story. He's really compelling us to care about these people, but then keeping the mystery there. What happened at the house? What happened with Mom? What happened with Nellie? Why have we only had one scene at all with Dad in the present, so to speak?
Yeah, and it may just be the fact that I was looking for more scares, and really there weren't that many, and the one that was there was not as um, striking to me as the one that was in the last episode down in the cellar.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think this had the scare factor of the other episodes in the show. It had the creep factor, and even down to the bowler or the tall man, creeping up on him, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't have the jump scares or the real. There's a monster creature.
Oh, and it's kind of like the
Closest we
monkey
got.
on your back thing. I didn't even think about that
Oh yeah,
because he
yeah.
was
The
always
being
behind
haunted.
him, and so
Yeah,
was the addiction. Well, I mean, that phrase,
that whole
monkey on your
metaphor.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
interesting. That's another thing I
That's a
hadn't thought
good
of.
one. I like that a lot.
Hmm.
He should have had a monkey in a bowler, and that would have worked.
And then it would have been a Pixies album cover.
I'm gonna have to look up. I'm gonna have to look up the Floyd cover now because I did not get that one at all. That's cool.
Yeah, I can send it to you if you want. I just Googled it. I've got a picture of it on my screen right now. But so who's next week? Shirley?
No, next week is Nell. Next week is Nellie, the last child.
Okay.
Because they've each done in descending order. So we've gone from, we started with Steve, then Shirley, then Theo, now Luke, and then Nellie, the youngest. Who's, and I don't know if they ever say, that might be something for us to listen for in the coming episodes. Do they ever say who's the oldest by how long? Between Luke and Nellie?
Oh,
I don't know.
I don't know that they have.
Well, obviously, Nellie's the youngest. Just because, she's portrayed the youngest all the way through it. The most childlike, even as an adult, she's more childlike.
Oh, so I didn't know they were doing this in age. So it was Stephen, Shirley, Theo, Luke, then Nell. Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
I had no idea.
And those are also the five stages. So next week we'll do Nellie's episode, and she will be acceptance.
Wow. And then we'll go to episode 6 when all the shit hits the fan.
Boy, will we. That'll be a 3 hour. Yeah. No.
That's a great one.
Cool.
Yeah. Well,
excellent.
It's been a
pleasure. Again, and again, this is all, I think, both of us have such high praise for Flanagan throughout all this. It's his baby, and I think he's been doing brilliant with it.
Yeah. Yeah, too bad Shirley Jackson's not around. I'd like to see what she thinks.
Very true.
Yeah.
I would too. I would be very excited to know what she would think of this show.
Mm-hmm. I guess that's going to do it for this episode.
Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, be sure and let us know your comments, and let us know if you picked up anything we may have not seen. We're always curious to know. Like us on Facebook.
How rare could that be?
What's that?
I said, how rare could that be? Of course not.
Right, right. Yeah, like I didn't even pick up on the age thing.